Hi, we're going to talk about chapter 5 here. Relatively short chapter compared to some of the other ones that we've looked at, but also I think pretty helpful. Some good points here. So we're going to go ahead and just jump straight into sharing the screen. And again, just a caveat here. There are some points here that assume a coronavirus-free world, so we're going to talk about those as those come, right? So objectives, though: analyzing the impact of your surroundings while you study, recognizing the importance of organizing your space to your best advantage for studying. And again, I understand for some of you this might be something where it's fluid and flexible, where you don't have one kind of unified place in your house where you can do things, but if you can, that is super helpful. Understanding the dangers of multitasking and strategies for avoiding it, and then assessing the degree to which personal technology may help or hinder your study efforts. So if you have social media addictions or you find yourself on your phone a lot texting, that might be of particular import to you. Okay. So in terms of organizing your space, and again, this can be really challenging. I've had to office more from my house, which is not necessarily my first choice. I have this space in a corner of my bedroom. I don't have a dedicated room as an office because all the rooms are claimed in my house otherwise, but I do have this place here and it's mine, and the things that I need are in the space. So that to me is good and helpful, right? So again, this kind of idea, physical space reinforces habits and different places create different moods. And I definitely have some things here that help me stay organized, list making type things, and again, just things that help me physically as well, right? So I have a monitor in addition to one of my computers, because when I was doing a lot of work over the last few months, I was developing some eye strain. So I am much happier now and am not experiencing that, thanks to this big old monitor that I have in front of me right now. So choosing your space, again, you want it to be something you can associate with studying and should be available whenever you need it. If you do need to move around from place to place within your house, if you can't have one dedicated space, then I would at least recommend gathering your things together, including your laptop in kind of one portable bag that has everything you need, any school books, anything like that, where you can utilize that and have ready access to that. So at least even if you don't have a physical space that is dedicated as your work area, at least you have the things that will allow you to make whatever space you are using as a work area, right? So, but ideally recommended, having a place that's available when you need it, should have good light, should have, obviously an outlet for charging your laptop and whatever else you need, and then place for your materials. Meeting your psychological needs as well, right? So something where you can be happy, where you can be grounded. You may need the support of others to maintain your study space, right? So, I mean, again, if you are, living with your parents, living with siblings, that's going to come into play. Try to keep it organized and free of distractions. Sometimes you might need a few minutes to make the space your own and make it organized and get the distractions out of the way. And then the last two important, especially now, right? Especially as more people are working from home, planning for breaks and then preparing for human interruptions, right? Okay. So favorite study spots, obviously these are not all going to be available to you because of COVID and because of the restrictions right now. But these are some possible places once we are past the pandemic, where you can think about doing that sort of work as well. So pre-pandemic, there was a co-working space that I would utilize quite a bit, and I felt that was a good place for me to get organized to do the work that I needed to do, but I've obviously had to adapt in 2020. Multitasking. Okay, so we're going to move from physical spaces to B to this very important term that is going to guide a lot of what we talk about throughout the semester, right? So essentially when you're multitasking, you're engaged in two or more different activities at the same time, right? So, and oftentimes, because of the world we live in, this will refer to electronic devices, but that's not necessarily the case, right? So, and basically the point that is made here is that some things can be attended to while you're doing something else, right? So they have the example of checking email while you watch TV news, but only when none of those things demand your full attention, right? So, I mean, if it's a commercial and you want to tune out of commercials and check your email, that's fine, right? So you can drive and listen to music. You can drive and have a conversation with the person next to you. But even in those kind of situations, your you're not able to focus on more than one thing at any given moment, right? So, certainly texting and driving, as an example, here's a really, really bad, example of multitasking, right? As in, this is something you should definitely not do, right? So you're not necessarily multitasking, you're doing what's called task switching, right? So, and what happens there is as you ping pong back and forth between, say, doing a homework assignment and watching a television show, is that it's going to actually take you longer to do two or more things at the same time than if you do them separately, right? So, especially with things that you have to focus on, like studying or writing. Okay, so. As they say here, each time you go back to studying after looking away to a message or tweet, it takes time for your mind to shift gears back to where you were, right? So, and you probably experienced this, right? So maybe you're doing a homework thing and then you get distracted by something on TV, and then you go back to it. You're trying to figure out, okay, where was I? What was I doing? When that happens, that's your mind trying to get back and focus on the thing that you were doing before you got distracted from the TV show. And again, that's gonna take some time to adjust, and so that's actually a poor way to time manage, right? So you may think that, oh, you're gonna knock these things out at once, but you're actually maybe adding on to the time that it's going to take you to do both of those things. Okay, so if you it says here, scientists have shown that in people who constantly shift their attention from one thing to another in short bursts, the brain forms patterns that make it more difficult to keep sustained attention on any one thing. And when you need to really concentrate on something, you can't. So this can be something that is not only sort of harmful in the short term, but this can also be sort of a conditioning thing where it's very hard for you to focus because you're used to not focusing and bouncing from place to place, right? So the stress hormone cortisol and the fight or flight hormone adrenaline can actually be produced through multitasking. And then multitasking takes the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that integrates information, and then your capacity for problem solving decreases with the number of tasks you try to perform at the same time. Okay. So how do you avoid multitasking? Turn your computer off or shut down notifications. Turn your cell phone off, which I should have done right there before I got interrupted with that call. So that is an example of something that I should have done and didn't. And it affected my presentation momentarily, as you saw. Turn off social media notifications. Generally, yeah, notifications, again, we kind of talked about this with the Eisenhower quadrants. That can create this kind of sense of not important but urgent. So that's kind of another reason that you want to turn those off. But certainly those can distract you. Those can pull you away from what you're trying to do. Put your phone in do not disturb mode if you need to study, things like that, or you can even leave it in your car, right? So, and these are just kind of phone related things, but certainly, the temptation to watch TV while you're while you're trying to write something or do a homework assignment, just being in a space where you have that off, where you don't even have access to TV. And then, if you want to watch the show after, as kind of a reward for doing that work, that is perfectly acceptable. So batch processing is a way to be more productive. Set times during the day to check and respond to emails and texts, right? So if you focus on that, you're not pulling back and forth, right? If you say, okay, I'm going to use this half-hour block of time to respond to everybody that I need to respond to, that can be more useful than bouncing back and forth between texts and emails and whatever else you need to do. Checking your phone as a reward for completing an item on your to-do list. That's a good thing. Using concentrated time, right? So blocking off time for working on just one task. There's a thing called the Pomodoro method, which we don't talk about here, but I think that's kind of an interesting concept, the kind of idea of 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. So if you can do that with, say, for example, reading that you have to do for a class, you can kind of build in this sort of reward system, break system by using that method, right? So you can set a timer at the end of 25 minutes, you stop, you walk around, do what you need to do for 5 minutes, and then you go back another 25 minutes. And that's a way to again, you're building in a little bit of time for breaks, but you're still hunkering down for 50 minutes of that hour, which is better than if you are just kind of shuttling back and forth between doing the work that you're supposed to be doing and going to Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat or Instagram or what have you. So do what's most important first, I think, is really good as a tip. Again, that kind of idea of making goals for the day, right? So, and then the sense of achievement can help you resist anxiety-driven multitasking. I mean, again, this can kind of be a way to procrastinate in a way too, right? So those things are hand in hand. Yeah, and again, just the things that are fun, use those as rewards at the end of the day, and try to, again, just watch something and focus on that, and not have to, you know, go back and forth and kind of muck up your TV or your video games with the work that you need to do. And then yeah, timers when you're surfing the web, right? So kind of try to limit the time that you were doing those sorts of things. Okay, so yeah, and again with multitasking, that this is a really important point, right? Again, to reiterate, it takes longer to do two things at once than to do each of them on their own, and can lead also to mistakes and poor quality work while increasing stress. So those are again reasons that you would not want to multitask. All right. So that is chapter 5, and we're also going to hit chapter 13, a little bit out of order, but that's going to prep you for your first exam. So we will talk about that in the next thing that I'm going to share with y'all.